Hello, and welcome to another episode of BLG News for the week of March the 10th. I'm Marcus Boston. All of the stories that we have in the news this week were submitted to us by our BLG fans. So if you have a story that you would like us to talk about and has something to do with what we have going on here at BLG, this is what I invite you to do. Go ahead and send us an email to info@bostonlawllc.com. Again, that's info@bostonlawllc.com. The first story is one in which it just gives the civil legal process a very bad name. And this is why a lot of people have problems with the civil system for things like this. A man sues McDonald's for $1.5 million over a napkin incident. Yeah, a napkin. Evidently, the guy is out of California. The guy goes and he orders a quarter pounder, and he immediately noticed that there was no napkin with his burger. And he goes ahead and says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sue them for undue mental anguish that he suffered as a result of the napkin incident. And he filed a lawsuit against McDonald's for $1.5 million. You see the look on my face. Yeah, that kind of says it all. Yeah, it kind of says it all. The second story that I want to talk to you about is one that came out a couple of months ago. And I don't know if you've heard this one, but a study was done. So they say a study was done through CNN about the reading level of college athletes. And the study found that many of the college athletes at these big time schools, big time programs were in fact reading on an 8th grade level. So that story has gotten a lot of attention and focusing on the role of athletics in colleges and the demanding schedule that these athletes have to be under and trying to do work at the same time. But the bigger issue is, are the athletes even qualified? I guess I should say, should the athletes have even been admitted in the first place with the reading levels the way this story suggests? So that's a very, very interesting story, to say the least. The third story that I would like to talk about, and this was one that we got a lot of questions on, and it deals with a subject that has been in the news a lot lately, especially after the Trayvon Martin situation and the Michael Dunn case, both of these cases down in Florida, and it deals with the stand your ground law. Now, originally I wanted Renee to do this section, but Renee is in court today, so I have to go ahead and explain this. But I will say this. I think that in a lot of instances, the stand your ground law is really kind of a distraction away from the real issues when it comes to self-defense cases. Maryland does not per se have stand your ground. What Maryland has is a duty to retreat with exceptions. Now, this can get very complicated really quick, but in general, in a self-defense case, you do not have a duty to retreat outside, if you're inside your home, I should say. So if you're in your house and there's a threat present in your home of serious injury or bodily harm to either you or your family, you don't have to retreat. You don't have to go anywhere. You can defend yourself and your family in your home. Where states like Florida have taken it further is what they have said is if you're outside of your home, you do not have to retreat if a deadly situation pops up. Now, if you're in Maryland, it's the same thing essentially. If you have a deadly situation and someone is going to inflict serious bodily harm on you or your family outside of your home, and it's not reasonable for you to try to run, you don't have to run. You can meet force with force. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and this is the central part of all of these cases, which gets overlooked by a lot of people. The question is, was the threat and your actions reasonable under the circumstances? In other words, did you have a reasonable fear or a reasonable justification to use deadly force? That is what these cases hinge on. They hinge on the reasonableness at the time. Were your actions reasonable under the circumstances? So that's my opinion and my primer on the stand your ground issues. Like I said, I think a lot of the times we're getting confused on the major issue. The stand your ground issue only deals with whether you have a duty to retreat or not when faced with a threat. And just like I just said, in certain instances, even though Maryland is a duty to retreat with exception state, if you cannot retreat, if it seems it's going to cause you harm to retreat, you don't have to retreat here in Maryland. If a man is pointing a gun at you, okay, what is turning and running going to do? What is running this way going to do? What is running that way going to do? It's not going to do anything. Chances are you're probably still going to get seriously injured or killed. Now, in that same situation, if you do have a firearm, then you should be able to use your firearm to defend yourself, because turning and running and leaving and all of this stuff, it's not going to be reasonable under the circumstances. Or a strong argument can be made that, look, my client, or I couldn't run. Where was I going to run to? What was I going to do? Guys, that's the news for the week. Again, if you have a story that you would like us to talk about, go ahead and send us an email to info@bostonlawllc.com. Again, that's info@bostonlawllc.com. I'm Marcus Boston, and I'll see you next week. Guys, take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.